Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the favorite bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey,
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Dennis podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
And we're on our second movie as part of Baby Month.
Baby month. It's all about babies.
It's all about babies. So if you listen to last episode, we're taking June to do movies all about babies in anticipation for Sweetie Jr. to come out at, the end of the month.
Woo!
Woo!
Woo! Here she comes.
So, all right, we've done 2 movies. Sweet, still not here yet. That's okay. I'm only 37 weeks as of Friday, and that's sort of like full term. So we don't want her to come before then.
How many months is 37 weeks?
So that means that I am 9 months.
9 months?
Pregnant.
Wow!
I made it. And because of that, we thought it would be apropos to do the movie
9 months. Wow.
So, fun fact, you're actually pregnant for 10 months.
What?
I think I've said this before. Because the first month, you really don't know you're pregnant. You find out at the end. But technically, you are. So, you're pregnant, as basically they count it the first day of your last period. And then in between that and your missed period, you conceive in between. So that's the one kind of weird ghost
Confusing.
month. It is confusing. So that's why people say 9 months, but really it's 10. But yeah, we decided to do 9 months. Long journey to watch this movie. As if you've listeners of the podcast know, sometimes we stumble upon movies that you just can't stream.
It's weird. It's weird when it happens. I don't get it.
They just make everything available.
That's what I thought.
I know.
And I feel like this was at some point, and then must have something with the rights or something got all
the fact
screwy.
that they take movies off of streaming is why? Why is
But
that?
you should be able to
happens?
rent them still,
Right,
just because they're not free streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
But then
Because someone's making money, right?
I don't know, it's I'm sure it's some permissions legal thing.
And it's a lot of 90s movies because we've come across this a bunch of times,
and
right?
Cocoon, yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, when this has happened to us, we do a shout out, on the podcast and see if one of our amazing fans might have this, in their DVD collections. And we've been really lucky so far. So big shout out and thank you to Meg C, one of our oldest fans.
One of our OG fans.
Yeah, OG fans
Miss
from
you,
the
Meg.
first year. And she had it. And speaking of the devil, she's I don't know if that's the right term. Lucky she's a Massachusetts resident,
Yes.
so it got to me in literally a half a day.
Nice.
Shout out to also the post office right now, who is
killing it.
I know the pandemic, that was really tough,
Yeah.
hard to get mail, but man, are they making up for it, because you can get stuff in the blink of an eye.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you, Meg C. You made our day. And we watched this on a DVD in, what is that called when it's a black box? The black is all around it. Theater.
Oh, on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh.
Not widescreen, but
Widescreen? I think it's widescreen.
Is it widescreen?
I think it's widescreen.
You know when you can pick that option on DVDs?
We
it's
didn't pick it.
It's how it played in the theater, because the theater screen is a weird
We
size.
didn't pick that, though. They just started
Yeah,
playing
that was
like
the
that.
default.
Oh.
But
Some are just like that.
yeah, it was annoying at first, but I really got into it. And watching it made me, I felt very 90s, pulling up a DVD, watching it. There's these trailers for all these 90s movies in the beginning.
There was a trailer for movies on DVD or what they were calling DVD-ROM, and it was advertising all of the special features that a DVD-ROM would have. So deleted scenes, behind the scenes documentaries, interviews with actors. Like it's this like amazing thing that we're like, oh my god, all this content, and it's just so funny to see
and it
that.
was the guy who does like the trailer voices. You ever seen like The Holiday, where it's like the guy like that one
In
guy.
a world.
In a world, yeah. Anyway, so great experience. Really loved it. Streaming has its perks, but it's nothing like pulling up a DVD. I'll tell you.
Yep.
So yeah, we watched 9 Months tonight. It is from 1995. Technically, first Hollywood movie for Hugh Grant. So apparently I was like, what? That's not true. Because Hugh Grant really shot to fame in like the year or two before this with 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Guess that's a British movie, so they don't count it.
Oh,
and
Hollywood.
Then, and then all of his other previous films and TV shows were out of the UK. So his first, like, if you want to say Hollywood, which is technically, I guess, US-based movie studio movie, this was his first one, 1995, which is like, wow, he's been in our lives for so long, you know.
Go Hugh.
Yeah, so he was so big at that point, and they cast him in this movie, 9 Months, and stars a bunch of other really good people.
Yes.
So who do we got?
We have Tom Arnold, who I always refer to as Kevin Arnold when I'm trying to think of who the actor is. I'm like, yeah, Kevin Arnold's in that movie.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? The kid from the Wonder Years? I'm like, no, the other guy. The other Kevin Arnold. No,
Totally.
His name's Tom Arnold. He was a big 90s person. He was in a lot of like family. He's like one of the premier
annoying
spazzy guy in any movie.
Right. And I will say, okay, remember he was married to Roseanne. And I think he was a comic too, right? I feel like
Pretty sure.
Met. Okay, I understand, he's annoying. I get it, but he like really cracks me up.
Well, he's annoying, but like that's because the stuff he's given is that kind of annoying content. But I think that like his delivery and his comedic timing is great. Definitely
I think he's
a couple
hilarious.
chuckles.
Yeah. Julianne Moore is a very young, ingenue-looking. Julianne Moore is the girlfriend, whatever, in this. And I was trying to remember, okay, who is the other, like, redheaded actress who I always confuse her with? No?
Today or in the 90s?
No, kind of like in today.
Jessica Chastain?
No. I thought you'd know. I feel like they play, like, similar roles, and I'm always like, oh, is it, like, Julianne Moore or the other one?
Jeez, I don't know.
Who's in The Kids Are All Right?
Julianne Moore.
Okay. Dang.
Maybe you've just
Who's
been
the other person
confusing it with herself.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's not her though. Okay, I'll think of it maybe.
Emma
in, like, the
Thompson?
next decade.
Interesting.
Who else? The wonderful Joan Cusack.
Joan.
Makes every movie better.
Yep. She's great. She's Tom Arnold's wife, Gail. Great couple scenes with her. Jeff Goldblum, obviously, pretty great. Has an earring. It's kind of spooky. We'll talk about that. And then finally, Robin Williams, guys.
So good to see him on screen.
An interesting character, yeah. And like his character is this like Russian doctor who doesn't speak English, and like that's the shtick, right? And he's like not a reliable doctor because of that, but also because he worked on chimpanzees until now. Yeah. Which, like,
he was
again, we'll talk about that.
Zoologist,
that's a strange thing
like,
to just like switch and also not know the language. It's like, I don't know. It's just like it's just a weird thing. I think in today's lens to be like, oh, this is what we did in the 90s. We like made fun of of foreigners because of like why did he need to be Russian? Like why couldn't he just be like an American doctor who used to work on chimpanzees? But then I guess they couldn't use any of those like jokes about him misunderstanding the words.
The whole thing was the language thing, and Robin Williams doing, he's big with like accents and stuff like that. So I think they want to like use that. And then randomly cameo from Kristen Davis, who I guess not really a cameo. She wasn't like really famous, but she's just like this tennis like attendant. She just like appears on screen. You're like, oh my god, it's Charlotte. I've been watching Sex and the City all day, so that was just
Delight. What a delight to see.
Came full circle.
What a delight.
So this movie is, unbeknownst to us, directed until we saw it flash across the screen. Directed and written by Chris Columbus, who's one of our favorites. Love that bitch. He does a solid comedy for
Family
sure.
comedy.
Family comedy for sure. This one had a lot of swears, so definitely like.
And yet,
on
I'm
the
pretty
other
sure
end.
we saw this in the movie theater.
It feels so familiar.
I mean, I definitely did. I don't say pretty sure. I'm like
pretty sure.
1,000% sure. And I'll tell you what. Oops, I have like 2 specific memories, and so one or a couple. We'll say 3. So I remember vividly the fact that Jeff Goldblum was in this, and he had an earring, which like freaked me out a little. He was just like very like. He was like a lot. He had like huge dick energy or something in this movie. Like it was just like too much. And as a child, I was like, he makes me uncomfortable. And then mom would be like, oh my God, Jeff Goldblum. Like my cousin went to college with him. And in my head, yeah.
Which one?
Joey, who passed away, but like Rizdi. But like, mom said that. And then like my whole life, I was like, sweetie confusion and thought that for whatever reason that meant that he was related to us. So I'd like tell all my friends to be like, guys, guess what? Jeff Goldblum is my cousin, is my mom's cousin.
That's
and like
amazing.
it's silly. So I verified it with mom tonight via text with Carol, and she confirmed yes, he went to school the same time as her cousin.
That's so cool.
And we think they knew each other,
Oh my
maybe.
God.
So that was always fresh in my mind. And then the second thing was this scene where Hugh Grant like turns around and there's this giant praying mantis in the bed. And it was a little scary, and like I just wasn't really expecting that in a, what is this rated? PG? I feel like mom and dad wouldn't have taken us to a PG-13 movie, but maybe they did.
A lot of swears.
I mean, it was similar to Mrs. Doubtfire, right? And it was just like also Chris Columbus of style of like there's going to be inappropriate things, but it's like family level kind of stuff. Like for instance, in my third memory of this movie was the almost sex scene, which I remember being like, oh god, like so uncomfortable that like the Let's Get It On song was playing, and I was like watching a movie next to my father, and I was like, however old I was. But they end up not having sex because I think it's more of like a family comedy, even though it's like adult subject.
But it was like kind of it's adult subject. I mean, with all the slapstick and stuff and the Robin Williams character, I think it made it a little bit more for kids. But I would feel bored, I guess, if I was a kid watching this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's definitely for older kids, like not like kids looking for like Toy Story.
12.
So, I mean, we just saw a lot of movies. Yeah. We were mature, and our parents were like,
but I remember there being like a lot of hype about this movie. And I feel like we as a family, if Robin Williams was in something, we'd be like, we're going.
Yeah, and it may have been like Chris Columbus, like from the director of Mrs. Doubtfire comes,
Yeah, exactly.
Or was Mrs. Doubtfire after this?
I think.
Oh, shit. Okay, then I don't know. I'm out of ideas. But
Robin Williams took a break from Jumanji to film this. So, yeah, I don't know the timeline. But apparently so Christopher Columbus did like 3 movies with Robin Williams that took place in San Francisco. This one, Mrs. Doubtfire and Bicentennial Man. So they did like working together. And Chris Columbus is great. Like I said, I just feel like he does like really good family comedies, which combine like heartwarming stuff, funny stuff, slapstick, like everything is like very well balanced. So you never feel like one thing is taking over. And from my memories of this movie when we saw it, I felt that, and we're probably going to say this every time because all of these baby movies we're covering, essentially the loose plot line is like the men are like terrified and not ready to have a baby. That's like kind of the central plot line. So I went into this movie being like, oh, like, man, annoying, and like, oh, Hugh Grant, like, what a wanker, right? But he's actually like kind of sweet in this, and I think it's like not. I remember him being so much worse and so much more like I want to keep my old life, like I can't have this baby, like we're not ready. I didn't even remember that they had been dating for 5 years. I thought it was like they were just kind of like a short-term thing. and she got pregnant. But so I was pleasantly surprised. It was actually like a pretty heartwarming movie. And then he, like we'll talk about in the synopsis, really comes around at the end. And as I said to Sweetie, you know, it's hard to dislike Hugh Grant. If anyone saw The Undoing.
I mean, I didn't like him. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, you know, he's the bad guy in that. But I mean, that show specifically really plays with you and kind of has like everyone take a turn as potentially being the bad person. But he really, I mean, the evidence is like very much against him. And you're still at the end being like, I'm not sure he did it. Like, because I feel like that guy is so dang charismatic. So, but I want to bring that up because this moment in time, so we're talking about 1995, so he was in LA for like the premiere of this movie when he got arrested with that prostitute. So if you remember,
vaguely,
he picked up a prostitute on like Hollywood Boulevard, like Pretty Woman style.
I was going to say, wait, I've seen this movie.
He was caught. She was giving him a blowjob in the car, and him and Elizabeth Hurley had a long time relationship, and so they like on the front page like of. I don't know, it was newspapers or because it wasn't even to the Inquirer because it was like real news. His mugshot and then the prostitute's mugshot. You know, she was an African American. So and apparently he said like he came up to her and was like, I always want to have sex with like a black woman. And so they like got into his car and I guess the police like stumbled upon them, whatever. So then he went on Jay Leno and like did this public apology and was like all, you know, flustered and whatever, but trying to be like apologize to his girlfriend. Oh my God. It was just like such a to-do, but it made the like people come out for this movie though.
It's not why we came out for this movie.
Not at all. But people were like, that was just like additional press that actually like really helped.
I mean, I just don't. So, like, he's pretty famous. Like, can you just get a person to like give you a blowjob?
I don't know. The way he's explained it was like he was just like on like he was so excited about being in LA and like who knows? He just like
weird.
I mean, he like felt on top of the world. This like movie was coming out, his first big U.S. movie. I don't know. So yeah, that was interesting. I do remember like what a big deal that was. I'm not sure like how long they stayed together because I think they did stay together for like a little bit, but
I remember them being like the it couple, you know, for a while.
Dang, good looking couple.
But I'll say so. I think so. This movie is definitely a man's point of view of babies, right? So it's distinctly from Hugh Grant's character's point of view, which I think is interesting because they definitely do a pretty good job of painting the woman as like the crazy baby monster, and it just like made me really annoyed. So we'll talk more about that. But so I had mixed feelings. Like I think definitely he was not as bad as I also remembered, but I also hated the way that they portrayed Julianne Moore's character in this, and I just think that's like total bullshit. I didn't like it
either, and I felt like it was unrealistic in that again they like dated for 5 years. They just start having that conversation about, well, I'm like 30. Well, she does. And like, I want to have a baby. And then like,
he's like, what?
Yeah. What? Like they've never talked about it before in 5 years of dating. And then, oh, wow. Coincidentally, like her birth control fails and she's pregnant like the next week. So that like kind of seemed a little strange. And then she does become sort of crazy not like crazy baby person, but all of a sudden is like, I want this baby. I'm so excited. Like, come on this journey with me. And you can't like blame him because like again they don't really like talk about it. So, and they always say like, you know, women come
but women it's from his point of view still. So like maybe they did talk about it and it's
who knows. Who knows? But they always say, you know, women become mothers as soon as you find out you're pregnant, and men oftentimes like they have to see the baby you know, when it's born, and then they kind of become obsessed with it. So I mean, take that for what you will, but as I said, you know, we're going to be doing all of these baby movies, and they really are all from the perspective of the man and male directors, I think, right? I don't know if any of the ones are...
That we're doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, good question.
I mean, that's just, you know, there's mostly male directors. I mean, especially in the time period we're covering, so... Anyways, also, this is based on a French film, same title, assuming same plot, so not wholly original. And so I think that's about it.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep. Let's do it.
It's time for the Sweetie Synopsis. Yeah.
Sweeties.
Okay, I have 2 quotes. I don't know why these just made me laugh. Now it's time for the physical examination where we look at your Volvo. So that was Robin Williams' doctor character, Russian doctor. Half of the shtick, as Sweetie said, around him is that he just like mixes up words that are very similar but also funny. So Volvo for vagina.
Vulva.
Yeah. And then, nurse, get some smelling salts and get these men off the floor. So they're delivering, and the men pass out when like the guy with epidural comes in, and Hugh Grant and the obstetrician pass out. It's scary. But I love that nurse in the delivery room.
Yeah, she's great.
Cool. She's cool.
She's great. Samuel Ford? Question mark? I think that's his last name. Is a child psychologist who like
Hates kids.
hates kids, but he just also doesn't have like a relationship with kids. Like it's just like
terrible.
He seemed like a terrible psychologist. They have him, seeing the same kid like twice, and he's just like terrible. And he's like not paying attention, and like, yeah, you just found out about this baby, but also he just seems like a bad psychologist. So that's his shtick, and he's
like, okay, so kids like notoriously they're gonna go to a psychologist or whatever, and it's gonna be hard for them to like
communicate,
right? So the kid is a little bit like, my dad's a dick or something, and he's just like, can you kind of elaborate on that? Like, I feel like that's
please
not the
tell me more
you,
about that.
The technique you use.
Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah.
Suspect. But he's been with his girlfriend, Rebecca, no last name. I mean, she might, but I don't remember if they said it or not. And they've been together 5 years, and they're having their little like anniversary beach picnic. Very fancy. And Rebecca sees a child playing in the sand, and she's like, "Oh, I'm getting a itch in my vulva. Like it's time
It's not crabs.
for babies." And so she just like kicks off the convo and is like, "Is anything missing in our lives?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like I'm doing great." Like no thought about her, like what could be missing in her life. It's like he's never heard of the concept of a woman having a baby in his life. He's like, well, I already have a job. We're together and we get along better than married people. Right. So like, I don't know what you could possibly want. So she mentions the B word, and it spooks him. He's just like, he wasn't ready for that. Clearly they've never talked about this. Again, which Sweetie said is I mean, it's alarming. Like, you have that conversation. You don't just, like, drop the conversation at your, like, anniversary beach picnic. Yeah. This should be something you guys are, like, talking about.
Check in once
and she's,
a year.
like,
about kids.
She's over 30, so I don't know if that means 31 or, like, 35 or, like, what. But, like, it's not like she's 22,
This is not she's having a baby.
Right. Like, it's I don't know. It's just weird. He just reacts in, like, a really strange way. And so she's kind of like sad about that, but then whatever, they have sex. They meet this like crazy family on the beach who are, by some stroke of luck, they know Sam's really good friend, John, I want to say his name is. And so that's how they have this connection, and they have these 3 little girls who are kind of like all like weird demons, and then Tom Arnold, who's like the big demon. That's Hugh Grant. Sean rhymes with John. I was close. Do you think I bet it's Sean, Shawn. Really?
Yeah.
I pictured it as that kind of Sean. Interesting. Anyways, yeah, so that happens, and then they have sex, and they have like some sexy night, and then cut to 10 days after when she's supposed to have gotten her period, and she's like, uh-oh, Samuel, like, I'm pregnant. And then they're in this car, and Samuel, let me just tell you that he's like a terrible driver. He's
just driving on the other side of the road.
Always distracted, and like, do not get behind the wheel if you're a fucking like space cadet distracted driver. I don't know what's going on here, but basically crashes his little like sports car into a road work, and he fucks up his car or whatever. And it's a nice little,
I'm a
like,
single guy, but I have a girlfriend.
It's like
car.
a Miata. Is that a car? Miata?
Yeah. I mean,
red,
like little flip lights,
two
door,
seats. Yeah, like crazy. So she's like, wow, that's not the reaction I was hoping for. Like when I would tell you I was pregnant for you to crash the car. And so right away, she's kind of like, okay, he's not like 100% into this, but like, okay, that's expected. You know why? Because you guys didn't plan this. You haven't really been talking about it.
She's on birth control.
She's on birth control. And why? It's just, whatever. So some time goes by and Sam picks Rebecca up at work. She's a dance teacher, a ballet teacher. And she lists off this like laundry list of reasons why they should not have a baby. And it's like, we'd have to redecorate the apartment. We'd have to sell the car. We'd have to get rid of your cat. No, they don't know that yet. But
And I think the scene before, he's talking to Sean about like not having a baby.
And
right?
and Jeff Goldblum's character is like very like, babies are the worst. My wife or his partner or whatever left him because he didn't want to have a baby. And he's just like, filling his Hugh Grant's head with all this like propaganda, this like
so he was ready to tell her
single
like,
male propaganda.
I'm not ready to have a baby.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's so good for you that you can have a baby whenever the fuck you want, but like I'm on a fucking timeline here. So she's like, yeah, we shouldn't have this baby, and then she's like, but I want to have this baby. It's like, oh, okay,
Terrible,
great,
scene.
so weird.
He was like, oh, sweet, she's on the same page as me, and then she's like, but I want to have the baby. Ha.
Too bad. So
terrible.
so they're going forward with this, and they still haven't really talked about it like in a great way. So he's just kind of like putting on a brave face, but like obviously, clearly, like not on board with this plan at all. So then they go through the stages of pregnancy. They become closer to Gail and Marty, is Tom Arnold's character's name, and they become like this weird kind of like friend relationship that they have with them. But over time, Sam is just like still annoying. So then they find out like, oh, they should probably get rid of the cat for like stupid urban, like old wives' tales of like cat poop.
I'll explain it later.
Like damaging the baby. And then, oh, you have to sell your sports car, which like, yes, true. You do have to do that. So they really paint Rebecca as this just like this woman who just like, I'm pregnant. You have to change. It's every man's worst nightmare, right? Is like you get your girlfriend or partner, whoever gets pregnant, and your life completely changes. Which, guess what, guys? Yes, that's what happens. Because you know who else's life changes completely? The woman's. So both of your lives are changing. It's not like I have to get, everyone's making sacrifices here. Nut up and like shut the fuck up.
And it's not like, I mean, I didn't get from him that he was like this, commit. I think it's this movie is billed as he's like commitment phobe or something like that. I really like get that from him because they were living together. Obviously, they've been dating for 5 years. It's not like they have this like booming social life. They go visit Jeff Goldblum at the Vineyard.
He's not like a playboy. Yeah.
So would it have been that much of a leap? I don't know.
I think it was just like how quick it was obviously spooked him. And so I just think it just happened fast and he just wasn't ready to like accept it yet or something.
Right, which is okay.
So, yeah.
You got 9 months to accept it.
Right. So they have a bunch of things and then they have this one appointment with, I guess their doctor is never around.
He had pneumonia that first time.
Okay, the first time he had pneumonia. So the temporary doctor, this Russian guy, I forget what his doctor name is, but it's Robin Williams' character. And he's a terrible doctor. Like, he doesn't know any of the words. He's like done this computer program to find like the due date, and it's like it was for monkeys. And so like normally, so he's an obstetrician for monkeys and rats, which like don't seem to go together 110%. And then he's like, yeah, I used to do that, and now I got my certificate, and now I can deliver human babies.
Yeah, I'm like, is that
how it works? Like, what is this? Like, you get a special license for like driving a semi instead of a car, and now you can do that? Like, no, you have to go back to school. Like, I don't get it. So they're super spooked, and like he tries to get her on the chair, and it like freaks out, and they're like, I'm out of here. So they never see him again, or so they think. So eventually Sam just like keeps fucking up and like keeps like not being super into this. And then the final straw is that he misses like an important ultrasound appointment. So big no, you guys. So he comes back to find Rebecca, and she's packing her bags, and she's like, I'm fucking out of here because you don't want this baby. You're not like interested in me or my feelings. So I'm moving in with Gail and Marty, and bye. And so he's pretty crushed, right? So he takes it pretty hard. Didn't see that one coming. Like most everything else in his life, I would say. Did not see that coming.
Blindsided.
Yeah. And he just, he has a hard time with it.
But Rebecca left the ultrasound. So in 1995, they gave you your ultrasound on a VHS and you could watch it on TV. Pretty cool. I only got printouts of like photos. And he puts it in and then immediately starts bawling. Oh my God. He's like crying hysterically. Oh, and they find out it's a boy.
And it's a boy.
So he's suddenly very, maybe if he had gone to the appointments and been there in person, he would have been a little bit more, crying a few months before.
Maybe.
But, you're just seeing him like we kind of missed this part, but they go out to brunch and she is finally done with morning sickness, which is typically first trimester. So she's like eating a bunch of pancakes and eggs and stuff. And she's like, oh, I feel so much better now. I feel like maybe we should try having sex tonight. So they immediately like jet out of breakfast and go to some country inn. And he's so pumped because he has sex for 2 months. And there is sort of this awkward Julianne Moore dancing scene to Let's Get It On, where she like comes out and is like undressing and has like a little pink negligee on or whatever. And then like the record cutout thing happens, like, and she's like, oh my God, I felt the baby. And then like, that's it for sexy time. So that's kind of like what you're seeing.
Well, she thinks that they're going to hurt the baby by having sex with it. And clearly their doctor never told them anything because they never see their doctor because he's always on vacation or sick. And so he's disgruntled about that as well.
It does seem like he's just like, he kind of wants things to go back to normal when, like as Sweetie said, like stuff is going to change no matter. I mean, it's just a railroad to change at this point.
And like, granted, they didn't like agree together. Yes, let's have a baby. Right. So like, there is part of me that's like, he just was not ready for that. But you've been together 5 years, and it's fine. Like, you'll be fine. It would have happened eventually. Do you even like your job anyways? Like, maybe this is an excuse to shake things up, Let's shake it up. So she's moved out, and in this time, Sam really starts like bouncing back to get back into Rebecca's good graces. But he's not served well by his best friend Sean, who's like a raving bachelor, like toxic bachelor kind of person, and is like, oh, let's get you a woman. I'm gonna throw a party and get a new haircut. I'll get you an earring like mine. And so he's on that track for like a little while, but very quickly is like, no, like I want, like Rebecca's my love, like she's the one for me. So he does all this like cute shit, and he like makes a nursery and trades in his car for like a family car, and reads all the baby books, and it's just like getting ready for the baby.
Which he should have done from the beginning.
Right. So he finds out that Rebecca is in the hospital because of her blood pressure or something.
She started dilating.
So they needed to look at her.
So just have her.
Yeah. So he goes in, and then they have this apology ceremony kind of thing, and he apologizes and like tells her all the changes, and then proposes to her, and that seals the deal. And so they've made up, and then they get married, and then they're ready to have this fucking baby. So Rebecca goes into labor 2 weeks early, which is like sort of typical, I suppose. And
movies.
It's this wild scene where on the way to the hospital, Hugh Grant, like I said, terrible driver, hits like 5 people almost, like gives one guy a heart attack, hits a cyclist. They broke a glass at the restaurant, and the waitress like cuts her finger on a glass. So he's transporting all these other people plus his pregnant wife in labor to the hospital. Finally, by some miracle, they make it to the hospital without injuring anyone else. And as luck would have it, guys, it's a full moon, which does not mean that many women will go into labor, as Sweetie verified on Google. It is false. It's a false claim. What are you looking at? Spooks. We got spooks in the house. It's probably Moosh. And so, hospital. Okay, so there's so many people in labor, and the doctors, again, there's one doctor in this hospital. He's on vacation. And so Robin Williams, that doctor, is the only doctor in this hospital. So he has to deliver all these babies, and he usually delivers like monkey babies. So, wow.
Yeah, and there's no rooms in the hospital, so they have to share a room. Luckily, with Gail and
thank God.
Marty,
yeah.
Right? So at least they know them. Do that. Isn't that rude? It's just the clicking.
eating something.
Some rat behind my ear. Sorry, guys.
Rat eating something behind the microphone.
Good times. Anyway, so crazy. Obviously, Robin Williams freaking out. It's his first birth, human birth, and so there's a lot of like slapstick, and you have Tom Arnold's character Marty filming the birth with a camcorder, and then the ladies are all freaking out. Where's their epidural? The guy with the epidural comes in. It's too late. They're too dilated. Let's get these babies out. And then it's just like, the typical Hollywood hysterical pushing, like bad Lamaze breathing,
screaming,
yelling
I
at
hate
your husband, I hate you. It's so funny, like all the baby books that I've read, they're really, mostly I've read ones about labor, about how Hollywood has really set women up for failure who are actually giving birth because like, from like the water breaking thing to the depicting really quick labors to saying like, I hate you to your husband. It's just like, it's all about this like stressful experience when really birth doesn't have to be like that and really generally isn't. But it's very classic Hollywood birth stuff. And then Hugh Grant like takes the camcorder away from Tom Arnold, and then they get into a fight. So then they're actually fighting in the delivery room when the babies come. And that's like a whole nother level of craziness. And so Gail's baby comes first. It's a girl. And then the fighting stops. And then Rebecca has her baby. A few pushes and the baby's out. And it's a boy.
It's a boy.
And it's very emotional. They're both crying. They kiss. It is very sweet. And then Robin Williams is so pumped because he successfully delivered the 2 babies. He was so cute. He's like, thank you for choosing me.
No choice. We didn't have a choice, man. We're the only doctor in the world.
But they did it.
What about all the other women that were having babies? I don't get it. Did he deliver those babies too? Was he only delivering their babies?
I think he was the only doctor left, like the only one that available to deliver.
Okay. That makes a little more sense, I suppose. All right. Yeah. So baby time, and then there's a sweet scene. Did you say this already? No. With Samuel, the baby's crying, and then Samuel gets up and is like, oh, my very tired wife who gave birth is like probably tired, but I'm going to play this music really loudly in the living room and dance with the baby.
La, la,
and
la.
it's like, okay.
La, la,
So it's a sweet moment, and then they're like one big happy family.
La, 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 la. Van Morrison song.
They made it. Did they do it? Did they make it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like they're already together for 5 years. Like, they seem really sweet, and it seems like, it took some prodding, and it took, kind of having a baby by accident to realize he was ready for that life. And like I said, it's not that he was like not grown up or, living as some kind of toxic bachelor like Jeff Goldblum was. He was basically ready. He just needed that push, which, I think is true for some men. And if it takes, accidental pregnancy, well, there you have it. So yeah, sweet, sweet film. Much better than I thought it was going to be. Glad I don't have to rage too hard on the men on this one. But
a lot of false things, though.
Yeah, but typical. It's hard to watch these knowing now so much more, having gone through this pregnancy process and reading so many books about labor and delivery and stuff, and just being like, Hollywood, what you doing? What you doing to us women?
Like what?
Hopefully, women are taking that with a grain of salt and actually are talking to their doctors or doing their own research about things, because I mean, a lot of people will say like, I was so terrified to give birth because of all I've seen in the movies. I mean, this is like what real people say, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah.
So let's deal with the cat toxoplasmosis rumor. So this one's still actually passed around a lot today. In my baby group, so I have like a couple Facebook ones I'm in, and people are all crazy about it on that. So I had a really good book that was basically all about, basically evidence-based birth stuff. So they just tell you kind of like, it's a lot of research and studies that they do. It's not just like, going with what has been known from the beginning of time. They actually like do studies and stuff. So the deal with the cat thing is that if you have an outdoor cat who would potentially be hunting animals and eating them and getting their blood into them, then pooping out that blood in a litter box, you change that litter box, you could potentially get this thing called toxic plasmosis, which would pass through the placenta, get to your baby. The baby could die.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, if your cat is an outside cat, it wouldn't be pooping in a litter box.
Right. So there's that. There's also, it's really like a thing with young cats, because usually they would get it. By the time it's an old cat, it's not an issue. If it's an indoor cat, not an issue, right? So there's all these little things.
I thought it was just cat poop in general.
No, it's not.
I thought that was, and this were like, is this what is like the crazy cat lady syndrome comes from myth because of this too?
Well, I mean, if you get toxic plasmosis, like you'll probably, it can be very fatal. So, I mean, there's a lot of qualifiers for it. So it's kind of a blanket thing where it's like, cats, no, like there's not any other factors you're considering, right? But I actually read what is even more dangerous, which was never mentioned, is gardening. Whoa. So gardening would be the same thing in the sense that animals are pooping in the soil that you're tilling and whatever. And if you don't use it, you have it on your hands and you don't wash your hands, you bring it into the house, you breathe it in, then that could cause you to be sick and kill your baby. Right. That is never mentioned. Gardening, you don't you don't go to your OB and you're like, hey, make sure
you watered the plants today.
Well, watering plants isn't doing it. So that, I remember when I got pregnant, people did say that. Everyone was like, like you can't be doing those litter boxes. Like you shouldn't be doing that. It was like such a crock. And then in this one, they talk about how like she wants him to get rid of his 16-year-old cat because he's gonna like smother the cat or the baby or sleep in all like the baby stuff. There's cat hair everywhere. There's cat saliva that's gonna like make the baby ill. I don't know. I mean, it was just she was very anti-cat. And I gotta be honest, it put a bad taste in my mouth for that character. It was dumb. And made me like Hugh Grant much more because I'm like, sweetie, he has a 16-year-old cat? That's adorable.
Yeah. And at the Jeff Goldblum's like party scene in his like bachelor pad, Hugh Grant's just like sitting on a chair by himself stroking his 16-year-old cat. And it was like really heartwarming.
Yeah, so cute. Okay, sex doesn't hurt the baby. So she's very uninformed. And this is one that a lot of women still really confused about. Can I have sex? We've seen some other movies where guys are like, oh my God, is my like gigantic penis going to poke the baby? Okay, if you know how like anatomy works.
Your penis is not that big.
It's not that big. And it doesn't go like that far into the woman, no matter how big your penis is. Like it's not going to go past this certain wall, let's say, called the cervix. Like, and the baby is behind that. And then also in like an amniotic sac. Anyway, crazy. Have as much sex as you want, will not hurt the baby. There are some cases where if you have like your placenta is too far down, like they will tell you to lay off sex just because they don't want it to like disturb the placenta. But for most cases, do it up. And actually, when you're getting ready to have the baby, to make the baby come faster, you are supposed to have a lot of sex because the same kind of, when they induce you, the same kind of medicines they use to induce you have the same properties that sperm does. So the theory is if you can have sex 3 times in 24 hours.
I thought it was like an orgasm.
It's the same as being, orgasm is one as well. So I think that's more like relaxing you.
Yeah.
And so the baby would be, more apt to come that way. But have a lot of sex if you're able to. It's good for you, the baby, and your partner.
Cool.
Okay, fetal movement, I thought this was kind of a mistake, but then I learned she was like possibly 5 months along, so I think that's okay. So I thought she felt the baby after like 3 months. So for your first baby, you technically don't feel it until like usually 17, 18, 19 weeks. If it's your second baby, you kind of, mostly because you don't know what it is, like it's not strong enough for you to be like, that's definitely the baby, because it's a very weird feeling. And it kind of feels like gas bubbles, so people will think it's that. I described it to Sweetie as like if you win a carnival game and you get a fish in a little bag, and the fish is like, like moving around. That's like what the baby is inside you, because it's essentially in like a bag of water, your amniotic sac, and it's kind of like flinching around. It doesn't move all the time when it's that little, but they'll do like these little movements. So it just felt like these like little flicks in there. Really cool. I think I felt our baby at 17 weeks, I think is when I felt it. And it was pretty cool. What else? Water breaking. So Hollywood always depicts labor starting with your water breaking. That's only true in about 12% of cases.
Wow.
It's pretty rare. So usually, like, you will start with contractions first, and then you're already at the hospital and your labor will break, or your water will not break and the doctor has to break it for you.
Yuck.
So that happens a lot.
Boo.
And then sex positions determining the sex of the baby. So old wives' tale for sure. This is funny. I had this teacher in high school who had all like 5 boys, and it was a rumor that he was kind of like a sexist. So we were like, oh, he like was obsessed with boys and wanted to have like, he was all about history and like these world leaders. So he like loved boys. And then this friend of mine babysat for him, and like was rumored she found a book that like taught you like how to like make boys instead of girls.
Well, what
High
are the
school's
what
so
are the
funny.
positions? That
I don't know the
give
positions,
boys?
but there is a study that has said like depending on when you have sex in your cycle can kind of determine whether you have a boy or girl, because sperm live inside a woman like for 5 days. So
Gross.
the sperm that has the Y chromosome, which would make a boy, swim faster but die quicker.
Typical.
Yeah, sperm that have the X are slower swimmers, but will stick around longer. So it's depending on if you can time sex, like when the egg is coming. So if you can time sex the same day you ovulate, then you're more likely to have a boy, because those boy sperm are going to swim and get to it. But if you have, if you ovulate and like then, if you ovulate after you have sex, and the sperm is just sitting in there for days, it's only the girl ones that are going to be sitting around because they're the only ones left. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's like the one thing that they kind of have research on. But again, I think there's nothing clear cut. It's always 50-50, right? Yeah. So good luck out there if you're trying to make a boy or a girl. Yeah, I think that was most of them.
Cool.
Any other
I
questions?
hope you guys enjoyed that, sweetie science.
I've learned so much, guys.
She's really an expert. It's like she's a doctor.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't have too many other things. Mostly things I've already mentioned. Yeah, I think this was like my main point of view of like who Jeff Goldblum was, even though obviously we saw Jurassic Park. Although this would have been the same year as Jurassic Park, right? 93? Oh, Jurassic Park was 94. So it was before Jurassic Park. Wow. But so yeah, then this must have been my
95.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So this really though, like when I thought, like I knew Jeff Goldblum was in Jurassic Park, but I think this movie solidified my interpretation of Jeff Goldblum for some reason. And it could have again had to do with like the false belief that he was related to us, you know. It was wrong. That was wrong. But it just like his character in this is just like very alarming. He's just also very like muscular. Like I don't remember Jeff Goldblum ever being that muscular.
He was very good looking.
Even in like The Fly.
He was more good looking than I think
He
I've
still
seen
has the
him.
like weird like too long hair.
Yeah.
Like his hair is too long. It's like just a little bit too long. Just make it a little shorter. And that earring just like kills me. It's just too much.
That's the only other thing I wanted to talk about. The 90s and this men with earring thing. Blah. So in this San Francisco case, they're big into the hoop. Was the hoop the big earring? If you were a straight guy and you wore an earring, was the hoop the way to go in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Pretty sure.
And then you had the 2000 being like the 2 rhinestones. Right?
Maybe.
'Cause
I'm not up to date on my
but now I feel like
men's
earrings
earring
are out again.
trends.
I think they're out again.
Yeah, I mean I haven't seen an earring on a man in a long time.
Yeah. I only went on a date / hooked up with one guy that had the double earring.
Hoops?
No, they were this diamond studs.
Yuck.
No, and that's more like I feel like a little like not ghetto. What's the word?
Yeah.
I mean, white guys trying to be.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake.
Trying to be cool, trying to be hip, trying to be cool.
Or trying to be almost like, like black. Like they're trying to get into that world.
Yeah. Possibly. But yeah, he's an interesting character, that's for sure. He's an artiste. He used to do nudes, and now like can't find them. So he's like, people aren't buying nudes because they can just get a Playboy. I'm like, that's not why people buy nude paintings, to like get off on the nudes. Like what? Again, not how it works. So he's lost. He lives in this like amazing estate, it seems like, in Napa Valley, where I guess it was their parents' house.
Yeah.
And he got it. So good for him. Lucky. He's lucky.
Well, and I was confused. Like, he's like a new blonde chippy girlfriend, like every scene. And
No, it's the same one. It's the same one. And then that one, when they were rollerblading, was just like some random girl he bumped into.
But then wasn't there a point where he was like, I'm miserable. Like, I never should have broken up with Christine or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then he's just...
I saw that girl again at his party. So,
Oh,
like,
okay.
that's why I didn't think it was... Yeah, I thought it was the same one, but...
Toxic Bachelor.
Yep. Always a problem. What else? I also love the oldest daughter of Marty and Gail, who's like, she's really into Harlequin romance novels. And she's like in love with Sam, and she's like calls him whatever the characters are from her book, and like
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo, and like accuses him of like sleeping with like another character, and it's really funny. And then later she gets into like serial killers, and she's reading like the serial killer. I don't know. I was really tickled by her, and she does like a great Joan Cusack kind of like impression when she is delivering some of those lines, to the point where I was like, is that Joan Cusack's daughter? Because she's like exactly like her. And of course there's some good Joan Cusack freakouts in this that are just like her facial expression, and like what she's saying is just, it's classic. It's good stuff. But yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah. Cute movie. Glad we did it. Again, thanks Mike C for the DVD loaner.
Yes.
We'll send that back to you ASAP.
Thanks, girl.
And thanks, guys. We'll be doing another baby movie probably this weekend. What's the next one?
Oh my God. The next movie we're doing? I don't know.
I
We have to
forgot.
talk about it. We have a couple.
Junior.
All right.
Better be streaming.
Junior. Yikes. I mean, don't make any promises yet, so we'll check it out. But yeah, come find us. If you have any baby questions, Sweetie will answer them. We're on Twitter at the Sweetie Club, or on Instagram at Large Marge Santos. Thank you, as always, for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Jeff Goldblum's kind of a part.
Kind of.